husband today, and we are going to be talking about something that we see is seems like it's troubling the African community quite a bit, and it's just about relationships and how to choose the best person for you. I think that it's a great opportunity for women to hear from a man's perspective, you know, like what men are looking for in their woman, and for me, you know, what to look for in a man from an African-centered space.
Right. So as my wife just stated, we're doing this video because for us, we feel like the union between the man and the woman is the fundamental unit that's needed for the revitalization of African people worldwide. So that's why we wanted to key in on this. So the title of this video will be Opposites Don't Attract, Complements Do, Choosing Your Mate the African Way.
Right.
And so just from the get-go, we want to dispel the notion that opposites attract. That's something that we've been indoctrinated into thinking, but we think that when you're choosing your partner for life, you have to choose somebody who's a good complementary pair to you, who can really build you up and push you in a way that allows you to grow and flourish as an individual.
Right.
So me and my wife, we're going to go through our top 5 things, and as our commenters, you can put some of the things you feel are good, but for us personally, these are the 5 attributes that we feel contribute to healthy relationships. And I'll be speaking from the man's perspective in terms of what we want from women, and my wife, she'll be speaking from the woman's perspective in terms of what they want from men.
Right. And we both came from, you know, troubling relationships in the past, so we understand, you know, the not really knowing what to look for, kind of just being out there trying to figure it out. So honestly, if I would have had these points or these kind of this advice at a younger age, then that would be very helpful.
Right, a lot of these things have come through a long period of trial and error. Like we did not emerge knowing these things. These are things that we've learned through our experiences. So that's why we're imparting it to our audience, because we want to help y'all so you all don't fall into the same traps that we did.
Right, and our experiences and just our studying and understanding who African people are, and looking at a lot of elders and their relationships and getting advice from them and reading those books. So it's kind of coupling and kind of marrying all those things together, and our relationship too helped us. That was like the main thing that we tried to model it off after, was what we did differently.
So now that we've gotten those preliminary remarks out of the way, we're just going to dive in. I'll start with my top 5. Again, this is the top 5 things.
Well, we'll do each one.
I'll talk about my first attribute, then my wife will go. I'll talk about the second, and as on and on accordingly. So the first things I look for in a woman. The first thing I put is she shares your will to develop a relationship with the Creator. Now, for me, especially as an African-centered person, having a relationship with the Creator is paramount. Meaning we're spiritual beings in our essence. So anyone who doesn't have a connection to that source, that divine source, is really condemning themselves to a life of misery, a life of toil, a life of confusion and anxiety. So part of being a whole person is understanding the value of that spiritual connection. And that spiritual connection shouldn't be confused with religion, because a lot of times we feel that if she's in the church, if she's going to church every Sunday, paying her tithes, if she can recite Bible verses verbatim from memory, then she's a spiritual person. But you really get a sense of someone's spirituality based on how they treat others. Are they practicing ma'at in their lives? Do they treat people with equanimity, passion, compassion, reciprocity, straightforwardness? Are they a person who has the capacity to be empathetic? You know, and these are all attributes of a spiritually awakened person. And when you get in contact with a spiritually awakened person, you'll notice that she'll begin to awaken that divine within you. And that kind of mutual recognition of divinity will then become the foundation upon which you can build all the other things that make your relationship prosper and successful. So what do you think of, what's your first one on your list in terms of what women would want from men.
Yeah, that was a really good point. I think too, like you said, that she how she treats other people, but also how she treats herself.
Yes.
How she values herself. That's gonna speak even more than how she treats other people. They're kind of the same, because if she values herself, she'll value other people.
Right.
But does she respect herself? Does she have limits? Is she just down for whatever? Is there, you know what I mean? Like, is there things that she will and won't do?
Right.
So I think that was a great point. So for me, my first one is he's able to prioritize relationships. He's a family-centered person, basically, instead of brotherhood-centered. Basically, he knows that he's black. That's huge. So I think that a lot of times with African men, especially in America, it seems that, or really just African men in general, it seems as though the relationship is just something that's just like something to do. It's not anything that's like, my life is centered around this relationship. Like, without this relationship or without this family, I have no intrinsic purpose. I'm not creating life. So, which meaning that he's going to prioritize that over money, over a job, over his friends, over traveling. Like, all of those things come secondary, because his main priority is furthering the relationship and furthering the child and building a stable environment and a safe haven for his family.
And can you expand some more on why the brotherhood aspect gets in the way of that family-oriented attitude that men can cultivate?
So brotherhoods and sisterhoods both get in the way of cultivating spiritual relationships, because what they do is they pull you out of that centeredness of the family, because their main goal is your allegiance is to them, right? Your allegiance, and most of the time the allegiance with the brotherhood came before the marriage, or the allegiance with the sisterhood came before the marriage. So that's your first priority. Now, most married people or most people in relationships will say, I don't prioritize my sisterhood or my brotherhood over my marriage. But even though you may not think you are, just being committed to a group outside of your family is gonna pull you out of it.
We just want to clarify, we aren't attacking the notion of brotherhood and sisterhood. Brotherhood and sisterhood, if practiced from an African-centered perspective, can be very healthy.
Very helpful.
And by that I mean brotherhood and sisterhood, in the same way you have a complementary relationship between man and woman, the brotherhood and sisterhood should have a complementary relationship with the family.
Exactly.
So I'll give you an example. Brotherhood among men from an African-centered perspective, sometimes it manifests in the form of Asafo warriors. But what do Asafo warriors do? They protect the family. They guard the perimeter.
Right.
So the brothers are uniting, but they're uniting in the service of the family. They're not. Right. So it's not an antagonistic relationship.
It's not one or the other.
The demands of the brotherhood and the demands of the family.
Right. You're not being forced.
The demands of the brotherhood helps you become a better father.
Exactly.
Helps you become a better husband.
Exactly.
You know. So we just want to make that point. We're not saying get rid of your brotherhood. We're saying the type of brotherhood and sisterhood that we practice
in America
is informed by European ways of thinking and European psychology.
Exactly.
So great. That was a great elaboration. So I'll go to my second point. So again, this is what I look for in a woman, my wife. It says a good woman understands complementarity, and that means she holds you accountable and she's able to affirm you when you do well. So I think one of the real blind spots that a lot of men have when selecting their mates is we're very uncomfortable with being held accountable. So we, just living in America, you know, most of my life I've lived in America, we absorb and internalize these very dysfunctional behavior traits. A lot of it really not ancestrally rooted. It's kind of foreign ideologies that are pushed upon us, and we act them out. So we might have sexist notions. We might have notions that glorify the pursuit of wealth over the cultivation of relationships.
Right.
We have these ideas that don't really understand the value of children, the value of a relationship with God. So all of these things, they have a kind of corrupting influence on us. And a lot of times when we come into contact with women who detect that imbalance and they try to correct it, instead of us being grateful and practicing gratitude and growing, we get defensive. We say, why are you judging me? If you don't like me the way I am, then what are you here for? And we kind of expect the women we're with to be our mothers. We expect them to heal us and coddle us instead of challenging us.
Yes.
And when you have that type of situation, you really can't have a kind of complementary relationship, because she's gonna be drained trying to mother you, and you're going to be in a state of stagnation.
You're going to be hostile.
You're going to be hostile, and you aren't going to be able to grow.
Yeah.
So as men, I think part of us developing an emotional maturity and intelligence is when the women who we're with try to hold us accountable, and if it's coming from a place of sincerity and genuine concern, we should embrace it and challenge ourselves, because anybody who doesn't hold you accountable doesn't love you. Because someone who doesn't love you is not going to put you in circumstances that promote growth.
Exactly.
They're just going to enable you and allow you to be your mediocre self. You know, when I met my wife, I wasn't the person I am today. But she continuously challenged me and forced me to look within and develop the type of confidence that I now have, so that now when I speak, I can speak with authority. I don't speak, halfway. I speak fully.
Right.
So and so that's another thing I think we should stress when we're looking for women. Can she be a good compliment? And that means, can she hold you accountable? And furthermore, can she affirm you when you're doing well? So when I underwent my transformation, it wasn't like nothing happened. My wife, she constantly gave me the positive reinforcement that showed that she could acknowledge that I was making a change.
Right.
So whenever a woman can acknowledge that you're making a change, that's another further proof that she's interested in your growth and not just some sort of self-satisfaction.
Right. That's a great point. I think I also want to add is that also goes both ways. So if she sees that you are continuously staying in the same behavior, you're not growing, you keep making the same mistakes over and over again, and you're not really showing any genuine effort on your part to change or to grow, and she's still there. And what she's really doing is telling you that she doesn't love you, because by her staying there and allowing you to continue doing whatever it is that you're doing, she's saying that she's not willing to really hold you accountable.
She doesn't see your potential.
She doesn't see your potential. She thinks, well, this man is clearly just never going to change.
Right.
So I'm just gonna, and by her staying there, she's enabling the behavior to continue, which is why most men who get into relationships with women and they habitually cheat, or they habitually do things outside of the relationship, and the woman just stays there, most of the time that man is never going to stop, because he's number one. She might get upset at him at times, or she may put him on, sleep on the couch for a few nights, but at the end of the day, she's not really holding him accountable, because it shows that she loves you, but she doesn't love you deep enough to challenge you and leave you. I love you enough to say, you know what, this isn't working for me anymore. So for both of us, for your growth and for my growth, we need to separate.
Right. And that's a heavy one, because a lot of times when you develop these attachments, you become so mired into dysfunction that it becomes your norm.
You just used to it.
You're just used to it. It's like the air you breathe.
You're numb to it.
You're numb to it.
Yeah,
so,
and that's detrimental to relationships.
So what's your second on your list?
So my second one is he shows ample amount of vulnerability because he is filled with trust. So that's huge, because it's very difficult for men to be vulnerable, and most of the time the reason that is because he doesn't trust himself. He doesn't know who he is. He doesn't trust his judgment. He's kind of like, I like her, she's attractive, she can cook, so let's wing it. But really, he doesn't really trust his judgment enough to be completely vulnerable with you and lay out his fears, lay out his insecurities for you. Those things he's not really willing to do. And if you're having to pull those things out, and it's very hard to get out, there's a trust issue on his part with himself. And if he can't trust himself, there's no way he's going to be able to trust not just you, anybody.
That's a great point. And I think, as you said, if a man can't trust himself, he's not going to trust his mate. And that's a theme you'll notice in all of our points. The foundation of all of this is self-love. Because if you don't have that foundation of self-love, then you aren't going to have a capacity to express love for another.
Exactly.
And you have to operate from a space of abundance, meaning even if you're not with the person, you're so full of love that you just generous. You just have nothing but love to give. That's how you should be. And also, I wanted to add that being vulnerable, and I can speak about this from personal experience, when you become more vulnerable, not only does it build trust, but it allows you to be more affectionate.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of insecurity kind of blocks affection, because you're always wondering how your partner is going to receive those acts of affection. But once you kind of show them all of you, and they see you, you know, the good, bad, and ugly, and the parts that you can build on, then that affection gets much deeper.
Yeah.
It's a spiritual type of intimacy. It's not just physical, it's very spiritual. But you can't get to that space of spiritual intimacy without vulnerability. So when we talk about vulnerability, it's not just merely talking about your feelings, but it's about bearing it all, where you're saying, I don't care what I say, my partner isn't going to judge me, because she's that concerned about my growth, that she's going to take that pain and say, here, I'm going to teach you how to heal.
And she's
going to stand by you in the healing process.
And she's growing too. It's a growing process together. You don't, it's not really healthy for one person to be doing a bunch of growing and the other person to be coaching the other person through the growing. Like, y'all not even equally yoked. So what did you find attractive in this person in the first place? It should be something where both of you guys are growing together. My husband and I, we started this journey together, and we both grew together. And I know he said that I helped him, but he helped me. Like, it wasn't just me pouring into him. He poured into me. I was able to pour into him, and we were able to cultivate something really, really unbreakable. So I think, yes, vulnerability is just, if they're not willing to be vulnerable, then you can just walk the other way. Like, it's you don't even want to waste your time, because that person is showing you they have a trust problem that you can't cure, because the trust isn't with you, the trust is with them. And you can't cure that.
So don't misidentify this kind of withdrawn behavior as a commentary on you. Almost 9 times out of 10, it's a commentary on that person's inability to reconcile with some internal trauma that they haven't dealt with. You know. So I'll get to my third, and this is one I think this is very important. I want you all to listen carefully, and I have a whole theory attached to it. So number 3 is the woman. I value a woman who is able to have vision and plan while living in the now, without idle daydreaming or fantasizing about weddings, premature celebrations and commitments, etc. And I class all this under the category of the Disney World effect. And the Disney World effect is basically a lot of black girls, when they're girls, they're kind of pumped full of this propaganda from Disney that says, you have to live the fairy tale life, meaning you dress up and look all pretty and pink, and then the knight in shining armor comes in on a white horse, and he sweeps you up, and you just blown off your feet, and like just butterflies and rainbows,
and everything's perfect.
And perfect.
He has all the money.
He has money. He has all his teeth, and they shine so bright. Like, like that's the kind of Disney World image that a lot of young girls are indoctrinated into, and the danger of that is when those girls mature into womanhood, they don't really discard that notion. It stays with them, but it just changes form. So instead of a knight in shining armor, you want the guy with the sports car, the guy who other guys talk about all the time.
That's how you choose. If that's how you're choosing your husband or your man, is because of what other men are saying, that's a red flag right there. Right,
because you have to consider these other guys, they're operating within a mental culture.
Exactly.
So if other guys are hyping somebody up, don't take that as the signal that this is a good man. Right. You have to use your own spirit of discernment. You have to use your own critical thinking and ask yourself, does he exhibit the values of Mayat? Is he someone who's willing to stand alone and say, I'm going to stand on principle because this is what I believe in?
Right.
That's the type of person you should pursue as a woman.
Right.
And as long as we kind of take our cues from culture, men and women, then we'll be trapped in these dysfunctional dead-end relationships that produce Disney World aesthetics, but Night of the Haunted House reality.
At home it's turmoil, but you would never know based off of, on the outside looking in. So
and I want to key in also what I said at the beginning. You have to have a vision and plan and not daydream. Now, what does that mean? When you're planning a future with somebody, it should be that planning and not idle daydreaming. Idle daydreaming is you're wishfully thinking. You're hoping this man does X, Y, Z.
So you can get to this space.
Even though he hasn't exhibited any capacity to fulfill any of those expectations. So you have to model your expectations on what you see and not what you wish it to be. Yeah. What you see, not what you wish it to be.
Live in the now. And when it comes to the relationship, look at what he's doing now. What is he saying now?
Yes.
What is he producing now? Yes. If his value right now is money, then that's going to be the value in the marriage. So you need to focus in on what is he doing now, because this is going to be a prerequisite to what's going to happen in the marriage.
And I'll just end with this. Any man who is really serious and sincere, he's not going to talk a lot. He's not going to say, I'm going to do this, and for you. He's just going to do it. Yeah. He's just going to do it. He might say it if you ask him, but most men of action, they are men of action. Yeah. They just do it. Yeah. Like when I wanted to marry my wife, I didn't tell her, hey, I want to marry you and I want to make it just amazing. No, it was already a mutual understanding. Right. You know, we looked at rings together, you know, online, because that's how established it was that we was going to get married. Right. So practice this idea of valuing the substance of things and not the spectacle. Because that's the end goal of this Disney World mentality. You want the spectacle. You don't want the substance. Yeah. But the substance, that's the sustenance. Yeah. That's what makes you live long.
That's what's going to make the relationship last.
Yes,
that's
that gives it longevity.
That's why you have all these marriages and all these pictures of people being married and having these relationships and these rings and all these things, and then a few years later they're not together anymore. And you have to ask yourself, why? How did that happen? Yeah. How did these people that were together for a few years prior to getting married, and they get married and now they're not together? Like, how does that happen? It happened because somebody was living in the future and they weren't focusing on what they were seeing right now.
Right. No ring is worth your sanity. Yeah. No ring is worth your internal peace and your connection with the Creator. Yeah.
Yeah. Right, so. Yeah, that was a great one. Right. So, for me, what are we on, number 3?
Number 4.
Number 3 for me.
Okay, yeah, you number 3. Yeah.
Okay. So 3 for me is he provides psychological and emotional support, not just material. Yeah, I was like what? Not just material support. So it's a lot of men who are able to, they're good, they have the good men syndrome, meaning they're able to provide, they're able to, you know, they're very nice, they're very respectful, they dress nice, they have a nice demeanor, they don't seem very cocky and, you know, all those things. But when it comes to providing and being able to dig deep, and I guess this is kind of like being vulnerable. Like, he's able to understand you on an emotional level and not just on like a face-to-face level. Like he's asking you critical questions. He's like, dang, like, tell me more. Like, how did I do this? Like, he's digging deep. That's really what it is. He's digging deep into what's going on internally with you, because he understands that the more he understands you, the more he'll understand himself, and the more the relationship will flourish. Yes. But a man who is just like, all right, bro, I'm not trying to talk about this, like, you know, figure it out on your own, like all those things, that shutting out mentality, that's not a good trait to have, because when things aren't always going to be peaches and cream in a relationship, like, it's just not. And you need somebody that's going to be willing to sit down with you and really be like, all right, let's figure this out. Yeah. And otherwise, you know, it just shows his intentions, and it shows his readiness to be a husband, or his readiness to stay being a husband.
Right. I second that. In Dr. Laila Afrika, he talks about having an emotional vocabulary, and I think one of the most underestimated virtues of being a good partner is attentiveness. Yeah. You know, a lot of times we ask ourselves, like, women, like, what do they want? Like, you can't understand them. It's like we pretend, I use that word, because women are people too. Like, sometimes I feel men talk about women as if they're just some other species or something. Yeah. But they're people just like us. They have insecurities, they have fears, they have anxieties. And a lot of times we aren't able to understand those things because we lack attentiveness. Yeah. We're running our mouth too much. We just don't listen. Like, listening is an art. And we must practice the art of listening. Because when we practice the art of listening, we really can dig into that psychological center where there's no judgment and there's all growth. Right. There's all healing. Right. You know, so I don't have much to say, but I really like that point. That's an important thing, having that psychological literacy. Support. Yeah. So I'll go to my number 4. And I think a woman must be aware and literate on how to practice good mental and physical health. Now, so this is like, I feel we can make a whole video on, but I'll make it short because in another video I said in America, people are functionally illiterate when it comes to health. Yeah. Meaning all the advice we get about health is based on these Europeanized notions of health. So Europeans, they glorify good physique, but they don't glorify good health. Internal health. So when I say good physical health, I'm not talking about get a woman with a nice body. Yeah. Because a woman can have a nice body and she could be drinking soda and drinking milk and eating white bread, sugar, white rice all day, but she has high metabolism. So we're not looking for good bodies. We're looking for good health. What is good health? Good health is holistic diet. Good health mentally means I'm researching my history. I have a connection to my ancestors. I'm always learning. I'm always learning. I have a thirst for knowledge. It's not just like I'm learning something when I have to learn it. I'm learning because learning is the essence of spiritual development. Like, that's the type of person you want to get with, because every day is going to be exciting. With my wife, we talk all the time. And we can talk to like 4 in the morning and then wake up at 7 in the morning and start talking again. On 3 hours of sleep, about to like pass out, still talking. And why are we like that? Because we both have a thirst for knowledge. And why do we have a thirst for knowledge? Because we have a love of our Creator. Because we understand everything around us is a product of the Creator. Last night, me, my wife, and our son, we was looking at the stars. Our son started crying. Yeah, he did. He was so overwhelmed by the beauty of the stars. And I feel like those kind of supposedly are mundane things, but are really extraordinary things. We tend to miss because we're so caught up in the craze of the material world. So, and being genuinely interested in developing a spiritual awareness means having that perspective where we aren't so tied up in the material. We're more spiritual in nature, and on top of that, you're practicing health. You're practicing holistic health, mentally and physically. And the health is also for him as well. Like, you want to research things because you want him to be healthy. You want your children to be healthy. Like, it's not just about you. You're like, how can I make my man healthier? How can I make my child healthier? You know what I mean? Like, those are all things that you want to see her pushing a lot of effort into, because it's a way of showing that she cares. Like, she cares about your body, even though it's not attached to her, because it's somebody that she loves. She cares. And just statistically, I mean, women are more health conscious than men. So if you're with a woman who isn't health conscious, your prospects, unless you're some kind of anomaly, is very low. Because women, they're more health conscious than men, and they go to the doctor more, and they live longer. So if the woman in your household isn't really health conscious at all, then, you know, and you're just drinking beers with your friends all the time, beware. That's all I'm gonna say. Beware, because that the Grim Reaper ain't too far away. All right. Go ahead. Let's see the next one. All right. So my fourth one is he's able to practice selfless behavior, where he's able to sacrifice for the betterment of the family. So that kind of goes back to him understanding that, back to number one, that his goal is the family. That's his only job. Like, there's no job outside of that. Everything else is just like, all right, I'll do this to make sure they eat. But like, my job is to make sure that they are healthy mentally. Rearing children. Right, rearing children and valuing the wife. So that means that if something comes up and he's like, well, I have to decide between my family or spending time with my family or making extra money or going out with my friends or going on a vacation when I need to be spending time with my family, like, those are all things that he puts on the back burner, and he'll sacrifice things for the betterment of the family. And that's huge, because a lot of men, you know, like, even once they're married, like, they still have this like boyish mentality where they're like, gotta go out with the homies, like, we gotta have our, you know, football nights and no women allowed, like man cave type stuff. And it's like, I mean, that's a very European, it's an un-African thing. Like, even just the idea of a man cave is European. Like, so that's why you have to make sure you're in your culture. And once you get in your culture, things that seem normal to other people, old and young, it becomes like, this doesn't make sense. Like, I have people in my family who have man caves. They're older than me, and I'm looking at them like,
This, even my husband is like this isn't normal.
Yeah, and brothers, we have to understand, because everything my wife has just stated up to number 4 and I've stated, notice that these are things that not only satisfy the woman, but it satisfies the man too.
Right. Reciprocity.
So this is, by that I mean, when a man discards all of that man cave stuff, this thing about putting the family second base, when he puts the family first, it benefits the man. Yeah. I can speak about that personally. When you make your life about your woman and your child, a certain serenity enters your life. And I think it does because there's this kind of life energy that's involved when you have the woman and the child in the mix. You know, and that's the original Trinity, by the way. The mother, the father, and the child.
Yes.
So when you're operating in that circle, or the mother, or that triangle, I should say, with the mother and the father and the child, you're constantly walking around with a life-based energy. You're constantly on guard. You're constantly wanting to protect. You're constantly trying to teach and nurture, and you become wiser because you're less concerned with frivolous things. You know, and I made a joke with my wife. I was like, a lot of these men, they kind of have this kind of late stage instance of, you know, when we were boys, like we'd be in the house and then your friend would come over and be like, can he come outside to play? And then you'd be like, yeah, after I finish my homework.
Like, can you ask your mama if you can come over?
Can you ask your wife if, ask her if I can sleep over. Ask her.
Ask her after dinner.
Ask her, yeah, like, you a grown man, like, your priority should be your family, not your friends. Like, your friends are valuable, but just have a hierarchy. Have a sense of what's going to propagate my legacy. What's going to be my legacy when I die? Is it I always won the bet on the game, or is it going to be I always nurtured and took care of my family to the point where they was able to grow and develop?
Right. This is why brotherhood and sisterhood, we say, pulls you out of that centeredness, because it's hard to have a commitment outside of the relationship, outside of the family, and commit to both.
Right.
Like, your allegiance should be to the creator and the family. Nothing else.
Everything else is secondary.
Yes.
So, all right, and so now we're on my last one, number 5. And this is very important. I think it qualifies for men and women. The woman you're with must have an unqualified love for African children. Now, this goes to the sacred element of relationships, because I feel if you're in a relationship and your goal isn't to produce life in the form of another human being, you're wasting your time. Because every African-centered person knows that the biggest way you can honor God is by producing more life. Because you're saying that the creation that he made in the beginning is the creation you want in the end.
Right.
You're saying that you want yourself to be propagated. You love your wife so much that you want 50% of her to come out. And you want 50%. You love yourself so much that you want 50% of you to come out.
Right.
So you're recreating the kind of dynamism and complementarity that exists in your relationship. You're manifesting it in physical form.
Right.
And then you pour love into that child, and the love you pour into that child is a reflection of the love in your relationship. So you're creating a whole ecosystem of love.
That's what it is.
You know, that's what you're doing when you're loving the child. So if you get with an African woman or a black woman and she says, "Oh, I don't like kids. Kids get on my nerves," or you see her cussing at kids, yelling at kids, run to the exit, please, because this is somebody who doesn't have the capacity to nurture life. And you can't be around that, especially in the times we live in where African life is under constant siege and attack.
It is.
You know, so. And
also for the men too, like, the men need to value children.
Yes.
They need to value children, and it can't just be that I'm kind of
number 5.
I'm stepping into my number 5. But for me, my number 5 is he
teacher.
Understands that he's not just a provider; he's a teacher to his children. So he's not just the father that's just like, all right, let's just go to the game and we're gonna have fun and we're gonna take some pictures and then you go ahead and go on now. Like,
I just give you this food and you ate and I gave you clothes.
Right. He just makes sure you have what you need. He sends you to school. He may talk to you a few times, but he's not teaching, sitting down and teaching. Xavier talks to Mikey so much. He talks to our son so much, and they have a dialogue, and he's always learning. Mikey's forever learning, and I think that if you are in a relationship with a man who doesn't teach his child, and that's the same. They go hand in hand. Teaching and discipline are very much married. So if you come into a contact with a man who's just very much like this when the kids are around, they just running around, they doing what they want, you know, whatever, and he's very kind of laid back. Xavier's always like this when it comes, and he's very like on alert, and because he's a teacher, and that's how teachers are. You wouldn't leave your child with a teacher who was unattentive,
right?
So why would you make a child with a man who's unattentive?
And the parents are the main teachers,
They're
the most important
teachers. They're the
of
first.
a child. The most important,
right?
You know, so we have to reclaim that.
Yeah,
you know, we have to reclaim that.
So we have to get out of this mindset that the woman is the one who teaches and and she does the raising and she does, you know, the woman stuff in the relationship. No, it's both of you, and it really is. Sometimes it's even Xavier does more than me when it comes to teaching Mikey. So I think that's a huge thing to have in a man, as a man who teaches and he understands the value of teaching children,
right.
And he doesn't get so frazzled, and so he's not to the point where he's like, that's the woman's job, I ain't got nothing, they ain't got nothing to do with me. He's not like that. He's very on guard when it comes to his child and his wife, because he's a protector and he's a teacher.
Right, you got to be a sopho for your family.
Yeah.
So just quick recap. So that was my top 5 and my wife's top 5s. But if I could summarize what we're saying, and I'll just put 2 statements, I'll say, loveless people attract people who cannot love. Self-loving people attract people who can love.
Right.
And we both can testify to that from our personal experience.
We were in loveless relationships.
So in my past, I suffered from severe depression. I was so depressed. I didn't love myself. The women who I attracted to me were women who mistreated me on the routine. I'm the type of person, I could get stood up and then I'll call you the next week and be like, when we meeting? Like that type of thing. I just had no assertiveness. I allowed myself to be taken advantage of, and it led to more and more depression. But what happened from that experience was I understood that I wouldn't be able to have a fulfilling relationship until I started to see that the women in my life aren't there to give me validation. I'm here to give me validation. My creator gives me validation. I'm here to contribute to the life of another woman who's living a life of abundance. And when I met my wife, that was the first thing I would say her defining characteristic. She didn't have a lot materially, but she lived a life of abundance. She seemed just one of those very bubbly, outgoing people, and it was very kind of not my personality. I'm more reserved and quiet, but it was like it rubbed off on me. And I think as men, we have to understand that until we really start to love ourselves for real, and that means kicking the European out of your mind.
For real.
Kicking the European out of your mind. I'll say it again. Kicking the European out of your mind. And the European sometimes disguises itself as a black person. And that's all the TV. That's the media.
Yep.
That's the music we listen to. That's the kind of images of intimacy that we accept as legitimate. All of this is the European occupying our mind. And once I began to understand that I couldn't be anybody but my black African self, and I started loving myself, I was like, wow, my wife, I finally found it. It took me 28 years, but I found it. I found it. And I was like, once I found it, I was like, I'm not letting go. I ain't letting go. This took me too long to find. So, so if you're a black man and you're dealing with depression, understand that depression isn't a product of who you are. That's a product of lies that other people have told you about who you are. And once you figure out who you are, you'll figure out who you deserve. Right. And you'll find that person you deserve. So,
yeah, that's really good, babe. Like I said, we both said we were in loveless relationships before because I didn't love myself. I clearly didn't love myself. I used to wear things and put things on my face, and I always had my nails done. All these things just because I didn't know who I was. And the person who I thought I was like, I don't really like this person, so whatever I got to do to hide it, I'm going to do. So, of course, I'm going to attract individuals who don't love themselves either. So, I think once we get to a point where we really love ourselves, we trust ourselves, we have we commune with the Creator on the regular, and we're vulnerable enough to say, I don't have all the answers, but I'm willing to seek those answers. that's when you start to be like, you start to attract something different.
Yes.
And I think right now in America, what we're seeing is we see a lot. America is a loveless society. So everybody in America is suffering from they're love deficient right now.
Wow.
So it's very easy to attract a loveless person because more than likely you have some type of self-love issues, and we mask self-love as the way we look or what we treat ourselves to,
or how much money we make.
Exactly. Those are not things that we're talking about. We're talking about a spiritual thing, things that can't be touched, things that cannot be touched.
What are you doing to the seat of God?
Yes.
What are you doing to your mind?
What are you doing to your mind?
Do you keep the seat of God polished, or do you just let it rot?
Do you let anything come over your screen? Do you allow any movie, any commercial, anything to just flash over your mind and rape you mentally? If the answer to that is yes, then you are probably suffering from a love deficiency.
Love deficiency.
Yes.
Love deficiency.
And like I said, America is a playground for loveless people. A playground for loveless people, meaning everybody there is suffering from some type of love deficiency. So I think that once we understand that, we'll start to change what we allow ourselves to see. We start to change the things that we allow ourselves to be around, the music we listen to, the books we read, the people we follow. All those things will start to change once you understand that it's an attack on you as an individual.
Right. I say.
Yeah.
So I think we've covered pretty thoroughly some of our kind of opinions and positions on cultivating healthy African-centered relationships. We hope this was of use to our many viewers. We thank you all for viewing again.
Yes.
We just love all the comments and feedback we get. We try our best to respond to everyone one by one just to show you how much we appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
So keep watching, and we'll continue to put out content that shows us in a positive, affirming light, and not one that shows us in a negative light.
Right.
So you have anything else to add?
Last thing is put in the comments below what you think an African-centered trait of the opposite sex that you would like to, see.
Yeah, let's start this dialogue.
Yeah, like put it in the comments and we can, have a discussion about it.
All right, so until next time, we sincerely value you all.
Yes.
And keep fighting and stay strong.
Bye.
Peace.